All right, hello students. I am starting now. Of course, apologize for my informal dress. Because of my operation, it's hard to change clothes and everything. And this is kind of an informal lecture anyway. This, by the way, is going to be our first lecture on our novel. And here I just want to kind of help you get off on the right track with the novel. I know because there are a lot of family relationships and things, this first reading selection is a little bit complicated in terms of who the people are. So as I review this, I'll talk a little bit about why the book is important to me and I hope to you. I'll point out some things that I felt like were interesting. And I'll also make a point of helping you with important sections of the story and also with understanding who the characters are, like I said earlier. Okay? So obviously, if you don't have this book out in front of you now, pause the video, go get your book, because I want you to kind of look along with me and perhaps make some notations in your textbook as well as you listen to my lecture on this first section of the book. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this lecture. I just want to go over a few things with you. Obviously, the first thing I want to say is you know by now that this is not only a story about families, but it's a story about cultures. Specifically, two fairly different cultures, Iranian culture and American culture, coming together. They're joined, of course, by really a third culture, perhaps, which would be the Korean culture, where the adopted girls come from, which you know by now if you're doing the reading. The other thing it's important to note is that the author, as is explained in the back of the book, she's an American lady. And so as an American writing about a foreign culture, Iranian, it will be interesting. I know some of our classmates are from Iran, I believe. So I'll be looking for any kind of feedback you guys have, whether you agree or disagree, or does she do a good job with showing Iranian culture or not. So keep this in mind. If you are not either Iranian or interested in American culture generally, I hope you are, but think about your own culture and how it compares to these. Does your culture, is it more similar to the Iranian culture? Is it more similar to American culture in terms of the traditions and the level of formality, right? So Americans tend to be informal, and of course, sometimes other cultures are much more formal, so important to them to make a good impression. So we're going to talk about that as well. So think about these things, because when you write your literary analysis, and of course, the questions that I ask you on this will sometimes have to do with these kinds of thoughts. Okay, so with that said, we know Digging to America. I hope at least you've already read the back of the book, which explains a little bit about it. That gives you a sense. But obviously, this is a story of two families. So if we go to the beginning here on what is this, page 1? What does it start on? Okay, I guess it's really page 3, technically. All right, so this is the first chapter. And we know that all of this is taking place right in Baltimore Airport. Some of you maybe have been to Baltimore Airport, and you can see the description of it at this time, at this particular hour. It's very quiet, except for the family showing up. And so they talk a little bit about the way the quiet airport appears. She gives us a lot of nice details about that first day when they're meeting the children, how everyone feels, how everyone is dressed. Here in this first section, the author really tries to create a picture in your mind. And of course, as you read, try to see it as a movie. Think to yourself, visualize what it must be like, the sounds. You've all been in airports before. What are these sounds like? What does it look like? Okay, so we can see, first of all, the Americans show up and they're very elaborate, aren't they? They have all kinds of details. They have name badges, mom, dad, grandmother, and so forth. And of course, all of these different things, obviously, they're very excited about the new baby that they're about to adopt from Korea. Okay. Okay, they tell you a little bit about the babies. They're 5 or 6 months old. This is at the bottom of page 5. Anytime they describe someone or tell you ages, it's important for you to mark that so that you know generally how old everyone is. They introduce you on the next page. This is page 6. There's a lot of names here. So I'm going to take a look at this in just a minute, see if you can see that. I don't know if you can see my annotations here. I'm just kind of scanning down, but this is what I want you to do with your textbooks also. Whenever names of people are indicated. So I hope you can see that. I'm standing here behind the camera. I wanted you to see that because I wanted you to see the type of annotations that I'm talking about here. Obviously, if you couldn't see in the movie, obviously, on page 6, I underlined the Donaldsons. That's the family name. And then the Asian woman introduces them to their new daughter, and her name is Jin Ho. So obviously, these names are important. You should mark those. And then there's another Asian, and then another baby comes out. She calls out the name. Of course, she mispronounces it, and then the other lady corrects her pronunciation. Miriam, I believe, is her name, so it should be Yazdan is how it's pronounced here. And so she's making an American or somebody that didn't know might say Yazdun, okay, but it's Yazdan. And so she's very important to her that they say it correctly. And of course, their daughter comes, and her name is Suki. So we have Jin Ho and Suki, and of course we find out later that they keep Jin Ho's name the same because they want to preserve, the Donaldsons want to preserve her culture, Korean culture, but they change Suki's name to Sue, which is almost the same, or Susan, and that's a beautiful name in Iranian culture. So they chose that almost the same as her Korean name. So you can see some of that. So we know, of course, again, now this is very important pages 8 and 9. There's a lot of family relationships here. So we meet Brad. He's the new father of the adopted girl Jin Ho, and Bitsy, which is the adopted mother. She's older than Siba, I believe is how you pronounce her name, the other mother. And so it's interesting, not only do they come from different cultures, but they're different ages as well, so that's interesting, if we see there's any issues there. They talk about the adoption process, and of course they give us the date here at the bottom of page 9. They tell us when this happened. Friday, August 15th, 1997 is the date this story was supposed to have been told. It's not true, of course, but it is set recently, so that's important. So Maryam, of course, is Sammy's mother. Sammy is the Iranian man's name. He's the father of the Iranian adoptee. And of course, it says that their baby's named Susan. I mentioned that earlier. Okay, so Maryam is the Sammy's mother, and then also we have. Let's see, what's the next one? Siba, yeah, and Siba is the wife's name, the Iranian wife's name. So, and my Iranian students, if my pronunciation is wrong in class, you can help me with that. All right, I'm doing the best I can with pronunciation, so you can see about that. Okay, so now we see Maryam. She's the grandmother on Sammy's mother, of course, the grandmother of the adopted Susan. And she talks a lot. She is a prominent voice, we should say here. They talk about her a lot at the beginning. And so keep an eye on her. She used to be married. Of course, now she's widowed because her husband died. And they give her husband's name up here later. I think it was Keon. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that. Yeah, that's on page 18. We find out about Keon. She's widowed, and she obviously is helping her daughter-in-law, Ziba, and her son take care of the baby. Okay, as we continue, 19, they talk about kind of what's a typical day. They have informal parties, and we can see in the party, we can see some of the Iranian culture here. 20 and 21, they're worried about whether they should arrive on time or late. They're just not sure how to do that. They end up deciding, and of course at the bottom of page 21 we see the age of Bitsy. Remember I said that might be important. So Ziba is younger and Bitsy is an older lady, the two mothers. Okay, they give you the full name, Jin Ho Dickinson Donaldson. That's in our American culture sometimes the wife and keeps her name and also the husband's name. So that's what we have here in the middle of page 22. Interesting to think about that. We also find out that Jin-ho is a little bit bigger than Sue, of the two babies. Obviously, they're both Korean, but they have their own personalities, don't they? And their own physical attributes. So Jin-ho is a bigger baby, and Sue, we know, is a little bit smaller. And then, of course, there's a debate about what kind of food to feed the baby. And then these guys talk about cultural aspects. Should the mother stay home, like Bitsy does with Jin-ho, or work, like Siba does when she goes to her interior design business? Okay, so make a note of that. Okay, different styles of dress and different styles of parenting. So they kind of argue about that. So keep that in mind. And as always, these are the themes that I'm talking about when I say think about what you might write about. How do these cultures compare to your own culture or your perception of American or Iranian culture? If you think it's true or not true. Of course, there are a lot of family names here on page 25. So if you didn't mark that, I'm going to pull this up to the camera as well. See if you can see that. I'm not sure how well that shows. Okay, but this is page 25. And we see that Bitsy's parents' names are listed here. And Brad's parents' names are listed there as well. So this is the kind of annotations I'm asking you to make. I'm showing you this as a good example for your own reading. Okay. So the story continues, and we find out that Sammy sells real estate. That's on page 26, so that's something that you should have marked on page 26. We find out that Lou, of course, is the man of the two, Pat and Lou. That's Brad's parents, so Lou's the man and Pat's the girl. Those names could go either way. And we find out at the bottom of page 27, you should have marked that, we find out that Bitsy's mom, Connie, is sick for some reason. We don't really know yet why she's sick. We find out later in this particular reading assignment that she has cancer. So we'll see that. They talk about the tumors and the chemotherapy. So we don't know if she survives that or gets better or gets worse. So we keep an eye on that as we read. Okay. And of course, we see on page 30 and 31 that Bitsy and Ziba have different ideas about how to raise a child. And like perhaps American culture, we're very, I guess that people would say honest or outspoken, and some people would even say rude, because we'll just speak right up and say, oh, you should do this or you should do that without being asked. So some people, especially I think Ziba in that culture, especially Mariam, she doesn't really appreciate Bitsy telling Ziba how she should do with the baby, how she should dress her, remember, white and black, because the babies are supposed to be colorblind, and all of these things that Bitsy does, stay-at-home mom, that are a little bit different from what Ziba does. So these are things that you could think about as you're reading. This is all about the drama of the family. How would you feel if you were in either Bitsy's or Ziba's place? And if you're a lady reading this, who do you identify closer? Whose style do you think is more natural for you? Okay, so then we find out that Ziba's family name is Hakimis. Remember, obviously she married into the last name with her husband. So her family name, though, is Hakimas. And so that's how they get along. Okay. And we see there's a little bit on page 35, again there's a little clash of the cultures. Bitsy's a little bit bossy. She's telling people what to do, specifically Ziba, about her baby. And I don't think they're comfortable with that. So maybe that could be a conflict in the story. Iranian New Year is going to be in that spring. So that's important because that's a big event. And they have everybody now, instead of going over to Brad and Bitsy's house, now they're coming over and actually they're going to have this at Mariam's house. And there was a conflict there too, wasn't there? Certain pages, they were, nobody wanted to be direct. And so sometimes if you're too polite, there could be misunderstandings. And I think Mariam didn't want to have the party at her house, but she felt like she was trying to help. And I don't know exactly where that particular section is. But they talk about later there was kind of an argument about which house it was supposed to be in. And so we have to be aware of that. Okay, so 54, now I'm 52 and 53. Here's where we learn that Connie has cancer. That's Bitsy's mom, again, just to remind you. And Dave is her husband. You remember you marked that page back there. Okay, so these are some interesting things. Here on page 53, they're talking about, oh, this is important. They're having the arrival party. So this is, now the children have been there for 1 year. So it's kind of a party to celebrate the coming of the children from Korea to America. So that's what they mean about the arrival party. And then a couple of these songs I thought you probably didn't know about. I'll just try to help you with this. Again, I'm going to go quickly through the rest of this, but this is a little bit of a funny part. They talk about what kind of song to sing. And one of them is She'll Be Coming Around the Mountain. And so even though I'm not good at singing, I'll just tell you that song, if you don't know it, American culture, of course. It goes, she'll be coming around the mountain when she comes. She'll be coming around the mountain when she comes. She'll be coming around the mountain. She'll be coming around the mountain. She'll be coming around the mountain when she comes. She'll be riding 6 white horses when she comes. She'll be riding 6 white horses when she comes. She'll be riding 6 white horses. She'll be riding 6 white horses. She'll be riding 6 white horses when she comes. All right, so you get the idea. It keeps going on, and the whole story, or the song, is about expectation of someone coming. So they keep singing, we'll all have chicken and dumplings when she comes, and they keep going on and on and on. Something new each time of what's going to happen when she gets here. So it's all about an American song about anticipating something fun that might happen. Okay, so there's that song. And then I guess on the next page they're talking about the party, but then they also talk about adjustment to a new culture. On the top of 55, there's another song, I Wonder As I Wander. Again, that's a religious song, and they're kind of complaining about the grammar here. And I think she's just trying to show, here we learn that Bitsy was married before to another guy, so she's divorced. She's 40 years old, she married somebody else, they didn't get along, so she has a divorce in her past. That's what we learn on page 55. But then they were talking about the kind of guy, her old husband, Steve, his name was Stephen Bartholomew, and again, you should have marked that. I have that here. That's her first husband's name. Getting back to the other song, Wonder As I Wander, it's a very slow religious song, very formal, and she didn't like that he complained about the grammar. This one I happen to know as well. I wonder as I wander out under the sky, how Jesus our Savior did come for to die, for poor lonely people like you and like I wonder as I wander out under the sky. Okay, so that's that religious song. Of course, it's about Jesus, and it's a Christian song. But you notice it says people like you and like I, so that it rhymes with sky, but it should be like you and like me, grammatically speaking. So just so that you don't get fooled by that. So anyway, he was really annoyed by that. Going back to the novel now that I've did a little more singing for you. So they, at the bottom of page 55, she describes meeting Brad, obviously her husband now. And so they got divorced from the old guy, and then she ended up falling in love with Brad here. And she describes a little bit about their relationship. So you can read about that on your own. Okay, so now we talk about Bitsy's 2 brothers. She has 2 brothers. One of them is named Mac. That's at the bottom of page 27. His wife is Laura. And then Bitsy's other brother is named Abe, and he's married to Janine. And they're both younger than her, but they have older children. So that's why she's older. And she really wanted to have kids. Obviously, when I say she, I'm talking about Bitsy. And you'll find out as you go through here, make sure you know who he's and she's are. That's a tricky thing in English, the pronouns. So make sure if you get confused, try to figure out who she is if it's talking about that here. In this case, I'm talking about Bitsy. So obviously mark your families. Ziba's parents, Mr. and Mrs. Hakimi, that's in the middle of page 61. Again, I want you to make sure that you know who the people are. Always mark new characters as they come in. All right, then we have a lot of relatives coming over for the party. And I'm going to quickly finish up this section now because this has already been a longer lecture than I expected. Okay. Let's see. At the end, then there's a little bit of jealousy coming in here. Bitsy knew she should feel grateful to Miriam, but she said she felt resentment because I guess Miriam is trying to help. Let's see. It seems simple. Oh, yeah, they're talking about a caregiver now for Connie. Okay, so this is about Bitsy's mom. I forgot about this part. So Bitsy's mom, Connie, is dying of cancer, and they need someone, a nurse, to come and give extra care. So here on this page, even though Miriam has suggested a person to come and help, the same person that helped when her husband was dying, and then Bitsy is both grateful, but she's also upset because she feels like she should have done that for herself. So this is the first part, and I think you can see now that there are a lot of relationships forming. Obviously, Siba and Bitsy are in a very similar situation, so there are going to be differences and there's going to be similarities. There's going to be times maybe when they help each other and times maybe when they misunderstand. All of these things are going to be important to the story. So let's go forward. We'll have a new reading assignment coming up, so let's continue reading forward in the novel, and of course bring any questions when you annotate. That's another important thing to mark, any questions that you have about the novel. So there you go. I talked a little bit about the novel. Again, I'm sorry for my informal dress here because of my arm, and I'm just coming in to do this quick lecture for you all. I'll post this on YouTube, and I hope you'll read it, and if it helps you understand any aspects of the story, good. If not, bring your questions to class, and I'll try to help you when we come back. Okay, thank you. Enjoy the rest of your week. I'll see you Thursday.